Hi, I'm Jenny Hall. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to make a really fun project. So we're going to actually use this stamp set today. It's called Incredible Like You. It's a really beautiful stamp set. I've seen some projects with this out on the share space of the internet, and it's really going to be something that people can use for lots of different crafting projects. There's also a kit for this. Isn't that exciting? If you want to get a look at the kit that goes with this really cute stamp set, then look in the Occasions catalog. There is a kit. The name of the stamp set again is called Incredible Like You. It is a photopolymer stamp set. And I must say, one of the things I like the most about this stamp set, that I'm drawn to the most, are the sentiments. And you can get a look at just how bright and bold they are. It's a very nice mixture of fonts that are from the handwriting and the knot. Good morning, Michelle. Hello, Kathy. Yes, Trip is still not well. The winter is not a friend to our family, I tell you. We get sick more often than not, and the family as a whole. Well, I would say that my husband has a very good immune system, and if he gets sick, then it's something very serious. Pardon me. So we're going to keep this more on the quick side, but I created a card I really think you all are going to love. Sometimes when I'm not feeling well, one of the things I do for myself is to give myself some time, like maybe a half an hour or maybe longer if I can manage it, and I go and create something in my craft space. That makes me feel better, being able to create. And it helps my mind to focus on something when normally if I have some sort of a respiratory problem, then my brain is not getting as much oxygen. That's supposed to make me more slow to react, but I find that if I create something, then it will actually help me to be able to hone in, to breathe better, to concentrate just on what I'm doing and not be involved in what's going on around me, just to center myself. So I hope you guys have those moments where you also are able to come and get yourself centered through art. It really is very helpful and therapeutic to me. I'm going to turn the camera around now so that we can get started on our project. I'm really so in love with this card, and I think you guys are going to like it just as much. This is the stamp set that we are going to use, and it's called Incredible Like You. It's one of the stamp sets that maybe, I guess the best word is called unassuming. There are some really fun lines. There are two-step stamping if you want to use it in that way. We've got some two-step stamping over here as well. I think this is also the first photopolymer distinctive stamp that Stampin' Up! Has published or produced. I really like it, and I think the images are fun. So we're going to do some stamping with just this rose here, and we're going to use a very fun color combination. The colors today, pardon me, are Petal Pink, So Saffron, and Soft Seafoam. And this is the color combination from the color challenge over at the Global Design Project this week. And their challenge runs all the way from Monday through Sunday. So if you'd like to make a card that has this color combination, then you can post it over on Global Design Project and appear on their challenge gallery. For the florals, we're going to use yellow and pink. And I will be using an aqua painter, some strips of watercolor paper. I'll be using a few die cuts that I've already got done in advance, and some fussy cutting with my paper snips. So to start off, we're going to use that flower image. And this is what it looks like right here. And I'm not sure if you can see, but the stamp is actually made up of teeny tiny little dots. Kathy has a question, and it's, how do you know if a stamp is distinctive? Great question, Kathy. The way that it stamps out is supposed to look different than a normal non-distinctive stamp. And I tell you what, we will use a little scrap paper here to kind of show what that's going to look like. Well, maybe, we'll see which one kind of makes it look better. The way you can tell the easiest is look at the actual image, and if it's made up of itty bitty dots, then that would be a distinctive stamp, distinctive type. Now that really doesn't mean a lot. It being a distinctive stamp just means that Stampin' Up! Has designed it in a certain way to give it a certain look, and it's supposed to give a more, oh, do you guys hear that? That's the snow geese. They're still migrating through New Jersey, going south. We love the snow geese. But the way that it looks with the finished stamp is going to look a little different. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what it means to have a distinctive stamp. Good morning, Judy. How are you? Hi, Nancy. Hello, Catherine. Hi, Jana. Hello, Kathy. So we're going to use this little scrap here today since we'll be doing a little bit of simple watercoloring. I have my scraps, and I'm going to use three images of the florals. Would you like to get a sneak peek at what this card is going to look like, what the finished project will look like? This is what we're going for today. And this is a very simple card. It doesn't quite look as simple as it really is, which is one of the things that I very much like about crafting and about getting a clean and simple look. This card is so easy to put together that a beginning stamper can follow along, be able to do exactly the same thing. You just need to grab the proper tools. You are very welcome, Kathy. Hi, Jennifer. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys like that. And thank you for the hearts. That lets me know that you can see what I'm talking about whenever I'm talking. Sometimes I talk with my hands as well. All right, so let's get to doing the stamp image. This is Petal Pink, and I'm going to just use the lid here and So Saffron. So Saffron is the one I'm going to actually stamp the image in. And if along the way you have a question, please type the word question in caps and then put your question right after that so that it will grab my attention very quickly and I will be able to answer your question while we're here live. If not, then I'll catch it afterwards. Hello, Patricia. Good to have you here. Thanks for watching. If you guys have not yet shared the video, I would appreciate it if you would share the video. And we're actually going to do a giveaway again this week. We're trying to do a giveaway every week. And the card we're making today is going to be the giveaway card. So this is going to be the giveaway card. And it's so pretty. So what I'm going to do is take this image, the one that we did the outline of the flower, and I'm going to stamp it in yellow onto a scrap of watercolor paper. I save all these scraps. And then I'm going to use what ink is left over on the stamp and stamp it again. So I've gotten 2 flowers off of just that one inked up stamp image. And then I'm going to take the other flower, because I need 3, and I'm going to ink it up again, very quickly stamp off, so that I have more on here than I did for this one, and stamp it down. So this is a little bit darker. It's like light, medium, and dark. And then I'll be able to set this aside and grab my aqua painter, and we are going to do some extremely easy watercoloring. Hello, Betty. Good morning. Betty is raining. Oh my. Cold and rainy. That's a bad combination. If you have never done any watercoloring with your stamp pads, then let me give you a very quick how-to. Once your stamp pad is closed completely, just turn it over. Take 2 thumbs here with your other fingers on the opposite side. And here's a good look at what it looks like. Take your thumbs and press in. And what happens is the stamp pad makes a connection with the other half of the stamp pad, and some of the ink is brought up into the lid. It's really that simple. You don't have to keep pressing forever. That was just a couple of presses, and there you go. When working with watercolors, it's really easy to use watercolor paper and reactivate the ink after it's already been stamped. This is the first image that we did, so I'm going to start here. And this is a clean brush, just filled with tap water. So I'm just messing up the stamped line here, nothing fancy. And what it did was it brought some of this yellow ink and is allowing me to move it around. Very easy, huh? And then I can use a paper towel, a tissue, or a scrap paper to remove any of the excess ink from my brush and get it off of the brush. Okay, so I'll have this piece of paper over on the side here just for that purpose. I want to add some tinges of pink down into the darker part of the flower. So I'm using the brush and just picking it up a little bit at a time, and just running it over the part that's darkest yellow. That's the part that came on the stamp whenever I stamped it to the paper. So here we have our little flower that has touches of pink. And then I'll kind of mix it around where those hints of pink are going to come around onto the paper, onto the rest of the flower. That easy. Very, very simple. So on the next one, for an example, I'm not going to wet the whole flower. Instead, I'm going to take just some diluted petal pink and take it directly onto those stamped lines again, just like we did before, but before I wet the paper ahead of time. So this is going to give the pink a better place to sit and soak into the paper. I want one of these flowers to definitely be lighter than the others, just to give it a good variation. So now whenever I bring the pink into those dark areas, as you can see, the water is pulling it up forward, which is part of the magic of watercolor. There's a few things that are magic that I really enjoy in my projects. One is heat embossing and the other is watercoloring. So I want to just put a little bit more pink down into the area that would be the darkest part of the flower. And then that flower's done too. See how quick we can give a little bit of a customized look to a watercolor that's, or to an image that is stamped on watercolor paper. This is just some of the basic things about watercolor that I really like and that make it so easy. Now I'm going to add more yellow. So we've got 3 flowers that are the same flower. However, we are giving a different look to each one of these flowers. And this time I'm just kind of moving that ink around on the stamped lines, and then I'll dab the color off of my brush to where I have it clean again, and then very lightly move around that color that's already there. It's going to dilute a little bit more. It's going to leave me some highlighted areas, and it gives a very pretty look. And then I'll add some pink down in here to the very bottom just to kind of give that look of cohesiveness, that they're all from the same plant. And the water brings it up and pulls it forward. And that's it. That is as easy as it is to create a few customized watercolor flowers. So what do you guys think? Jennifer also loves the heat embossing too. Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for joining today. There is not a set of dies that goes with this. And by the way, I will save this piece of watercolor paper. This is about the smallest of a piece that I save, but I do save them because look, I can get a flower from it. So I'm very quickly going to fussy cut these. They are still a little wet, but they should be plenty dry by the time that we can do some other stamping and then get ready to use these. That's why I started with the flowers, so that I'm able to bring them into the project dry. You don't ever want to bring wet watercolor paper into a project if you can help it. And they're very quick to cut out. I like this flower fussy cut because it's very forgiving. I don't have to stay on one particular line. It's an easy design. Making sure that you guys don't have any questions along the way. Thank you, Kathy. I'm so glad you like these flowers. Kathy has participated in my paper share, which has already closed off, and the first round of paper share is already been processing, and we're waiting for it to come in. But we have another paper share round that's going to start up. So if you're interested in participating, then you can sign up by one of the links that is here in this video description, and that will get you to the paper share sampler sign up page. I always try to put some extra goodies in with my paper share when I send them out, and it's a lot of fun. I really like interacting with you all in that way. Thanks, Philomena. I'm so glad that you like it. So we're going to set these watercolor tools aside because we've done what we need to do with watercoloring for now, and we'll be all right to just do regular stamping. So I'm going to set these little flowers here to the side, and they will dry on their own. They're not too wet. They're not wet to the point of needing to have the heat tool. I've made a few die cuts in advance, and this is a heart that we're going to use for our project. This is from the Be Mine Stitched Framelits dies, and I have used these two largest pieces together to create this little heart frame. Isn't it just so cute? This is actually 2 layers of cardstock together. You can see where I took a scrap and just kind of used it up as well, so it will not show on the back side. And this is 2 layers. This is going to give me a nice stiff, not wanting to be knocked off of the card heart. So I like the fact that I could make it a bit more sturdy. These are the sweethearts, and these are the sassy hearts. So you can choose which type of look that you would like to get. This particular framelit set is very large and has 2 sheets of framelits. Beautiful, aren't they? I was very tempted to use some of the other images in this card, but I really want the florals to be the focus. But I'm very much liking this little die here. And this flower right here. So we already have our die cuts made today. Hi, Lisa. We're going to also use a stitched square that is from the Stitched Shapes framelits dies, and I've used the second to the largest one. You can see here, this is the largest and this is the second to the largest. When I created this card, this is the card that we're making today, this die cut and this die cut were actually in my scrap bin. So when I'm just making something for the fun or for the feeling of creation, then I will oftentimes go to my little tiny scrap bin and I'll pull out some pre-done die cuts and I'll audition some pieces to see what they would look like on a particular project. And that is a really easy way to decide if something would look better for you in a circle or a square or an oval or a heart. There's lots of different things you can do with some pre-cut dies. So I oftentimes will use some that are already in my little bin and just kind of move things around, such as mounting a stamp and then holding it to see how it's going to look on a square, or how it's going to look in a circle, or how it's going to look here on a heart. Thank you, Karen. Excuse me. Jennifer has a question. I ran 2 pieces of paper through at the same time and they stuck together. Yes. Now, something that I also do is I'll take 2 pieces of paper. Let's use this for example. I better cover this black before I have a black ink pad disaster. So pretend like this is 2 single pieces of paper, regular Whisper White, normal weight cardstock, nothing heavy. Then I will take the snail adhesive and just kind of put little dabs of snail here and there to where when the die, and I'll place these together and very firmly activate the adhesive. And as I run the die, then there's enough tiny little spaces where it's going to stick together. Besides the fact that the die cutting machine presses these stitch lines and these die cut lines, this piece is not going to come apart at all. Now I can show you an example, perfect example, but you guys are going to have to keep my secret here because this is a big secret. I'll show you another card that has the same principle. I made this card yesterday, and if you look at how the die has kept all those pieces together, it's the exact same principle. This is all these little bits, none of them came out, not a one. And it's 2 pieces of paper put together in exactly the same way, and the snail adhesive keeps it together and keeps the paper together in enough places that it doesn't let anything go away. Now, if I took my paper piercing tool and tried to poke out some of these little die cut pieces, it would come apart if I force it enough because the paper is cut down. But because I'm only cutting, or I should say, because I am cutting 2 pieces of paper together, then it doesn't want to cut through with one pass through the die cut machine. It doesn't completely let the back side of the paper want to just let go and be free, completely cut. So the top layer is completely cut through. The back layer is almost completely cut through. And as a bonus, it's the same principle when you use watercolor paper. Most watercolor paper is 140 pound in weight, which means that it's a lot thicker and heavier of paper. So oftentimes I will die cut a piece of watercolor paper and it doesn't pull the pieces out, and I don't have to secure it with another piece of paper on the back. It's heavy enough to just go on its own. Oh, I'm glad you guys like this card. This card is going to be on my blog on Tuesday, and I did not make a video for it, but it's something that I was able to make yesterday afternoon, and I sometimes I just can't make a video for everything because of the circumstances that I'm working in, and that means my family, and if my family needs me, then I have to work sometimes at an odd hour to where my kids need me with them when they're awake and when they need me. I'm sure you guys understand. So that's why this heart will stay together. And if you look on the back, those stitch lines did not come all the way through the back side of the paper. They didn't show through the back side. And what it's doing is it's keeping these two pieces together. It's almost like they're stapled. So if you can imagine, almost like a staple is working to keep the paper together in that respect. You are welcome, Jennifer. So here is this really pretty sentiment that says, "So glad we are friends." And if you're just joining, you can see that we're using Incredible Like You stamp set. And I like to use these low profile paper pumpkin blocks so that I can see through them because my eyesight is very poor. And it helps me to be able to get the sentiment just a little bit more positioned in place because I am a very crooked stamper. Here we go. And I'm going to let that stay in place for just a few minutes. Well, I should say a few seconds, to let that black ink soak down into the paper. Because this is such a solid sentiment, then I want all of the ink to transfer over. You could also use the Stamparatus in order to stamp it again and again until it gets the look that you like. There we go. That works well enough for me. And we're going to do some stamping directly onto the card base as well. This is a Whisper White, thick Whisper White card base. It is from A2 cardstock piece, and the dimensions are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. To create a card base, cut a piece of paper at 4 1/4 by 11, and then score at the 5 1/2 mark. And when you fold it over, use your bone folder or some other type of thing. You could use the cap to a pin as long as the color doesn't come off on your cardstock. You could use a blade, very gently use the blade of the side of your snips, or you could use a bone folder, and a bone folder looks like this. This is the safest way to burnish your card fold. We'll add some stamping to this card base now, and what we're going to do is we're going to place this where it will sit so that it'll give us a bit of a guide on where we're going to add our stamped images. The first thing I want to do is add some greenery into the background. So this is the color of green we're going to use, which is soft seafoam. And this is the image, this is the bottom image, or the more dotted large image of the two that are here on the stamp set. So this is the one I'm going to use, and this is going to be a much lighter stamped image than this one will. And I'll also probably use many generations of the ink. So I want my florals to kind of begin and stay inside the heart. I'm going to place the heart in this manner. So my florals are going to start down here. And I'll simply ink this up and add some florals that are going to start in this way. Use a second generation by bringing it up higher. So it's going to appear like as if there is more greenery in the background. And I want some of these little greenery to appear above where, place this into position. I want it to appear above where the flowers are going to show. So I'm going to be very careful about where I place the greenery. Now my flowers are going to cover up a lot of this as well. I'm going to do one more here. That way I know I'll have something that appears above the florals. Now to get a little bit more variety, then I think it's going to be, and we're done with the green now, by the way, we're finished with that green. To get a little more variety, I love this little tiny image here. It reminds me of wheat or some sort of seed, and I thought it was a very nice compliment to the yellow flowers. And so I'm going to add just a few pieces, a few stamped images here. I'm going to keep everything kind of in one direction. And I'll use that second generation of ink that's already here on my stamp and put it here. And then I'll come back to this again, but not until I get everything in place. So we're going to set this little guy aside and we'll come back to him because we may want to add some more accents because this is going to appear to be a floral spray. Pardon me. Petal pink is going to be found already on these little flowers. So we're going to bring petal pink into the project a little bit more. And I'm going to use the tiniest little stamp right here. Isn't it adorable? It's so tiny. And the distinctive look really shows up on this because you can see that they've put a higher concentration of dots down where the shadows will lie on that stamp. So we've got an itty bitty stamp here. And this is going to appear to be like the same flower, but maybe in its very early stage. I'm going to get flowers going in a couple of directions here. And just to make it look like there are little flower buds. And that's enough pink to complement, because yellow is definitely our main focus color. So we can start building things up together. And if you have any questions along the way, please do ask. One thing I want to do is I want to add some dimension to this really pretty heart so that it appears as if it's not laying flat on the card, but it is up off of the card. So I'll take some Stampin' Dimensionals and I'm going to cut the tiniest strip away from the edge of the dimensional sheet. And that's going to give me this itty bitty teeny tiny strip. And where I'm going to need it the most is on this outside edge here. I'm going to just apply it down, and because it's such a thin strip, then I can bend it in with no problems whatsoever. And I'll cut another teeny tiny strip. This one kind of had something hang on to it. We'll see if we can use that too. And I'm going to go around the other side here. This is just enough, this is just thick enough to keep it up off of the card. You can see here that it's going to lay underneath, this square here, so I can use dimensionals here, but on the other side it's going to be supported by the flowers. So I'll just use a couple of these little tiny pieces that were left over. If you have any questions, please ask. If you'd like to share the video, then I would greatly appreciate you sharing. Just indicate that you have shared and you will be entered into the giveaway. The giveaway is going to be the card that we're making today. All right, so this is starting to really shape up, and I like the way that this heart and the square both have the stitched look together. It looks like they belong together. So what I'm going to do is use some mini glue dots on the back so that I can go ahead and get one unit one cohesive unit started. You could also use some snail adhesive if that's something that works for you better. This is going to allow these two pieces to really stick together for now. And I'm folding the glue dot in half. I'm going to add another one right over here where the heart lays on top of the square. And make sure that glue dot is hidden behind. So now I've got some dimension on the heart. I'm going to add some dimension onto the square as well. And I can use some of these little leftover pieces of Stampin' Dimensionals. And that will be just enough. And then we can use these for our flowers when we get to that part. So do you guys use up the dimensional sheet until it's completely gone? I'd love to hear how you handle when your dimensionals get down to this point. All right, here we are. So we can go ahead and start positioning some things. Removing the backing pieces of the dimensionals very carefully on those little tiny strips. But by cutting those little tiny strips, it also gave me these really tiny triangles, and those were just the perfect size to fit on the side of the heart as well. Here we are. So we could go lots of different ways with this heart, but I think it would look the best in my eye if I have the square be straight, and by adhering it this way, then it's going to help me to get it as straight as it can be. I'm going to keep that heart kind of wonky on its side, and it's just that simple to put it together. That's why I say that this project is geared more toward a casual crafter that can make this in nothing flat. But with a beginning stamper, sometimes it's a little bit of a different concept to see how it all goes together. And this is one of the reasons why I like to take the time and explain things in this way. Pardon me. Now we've got our really pretty flowers, and I'm just going to give them a little bit of a curve. That's going to give them an added look of dimension. And because it's watercolor paper, it's really stiff, and it's going to hold that curve, because the flowers are really the focal point other than the sentiment for this project. And now we can position them. I like to have something that's bold and bright right out in the front, and I think that would be this flower here. We can put the next flower that is the lightest flower, that would be this guy. We can put this guy over here, with this one kind of turned at an angle. And then the last one can appear underneath. Now in this card, I clipped away the portion of the heart that would normally be obscured and kind of stick out over and above where these would go. And I think I'm going to do that again. You could certainly leave it intact. It would not be wrong. In fact, if you want to try to see what it would look like with and without, then just pull it away and keep it intact so that you could use that if you like. See, now the two pieces of paper have come together because I've stressed the paper by pulling it away. And this is a piece of that dimensional. I'll just kind of remove him. And now those pretty florals can be seen, and I can actually set my flowers up more at an angle to where they're going to really show through. I've covered up one of my little pink flowers, and that's one of the reasons why I've kept a lot of these stamp pads around, so that I can use that little pink flower. And then we'll do the same thing for the little yellow spray, but we'll add another flower here where I've covered up one. Then I'll have the next one to where he can really be seen. And I think I might like a little more greenery here. This is where you can take your project and you can customize it to whatever works best for you. So we're going to adhere this one straight down to the card. You can do that with liquid glue or with mini glue dots. I'm going to use liquid glue, just a nice little bit, not enough to where it's going to squish out, because that's how a big mess tends to happen. And this will go on a Stampin' Dimensional because it's going to be raised up to the same level as the heart. So I'll add a dimensional on each side of that border of where the heart is. The flowers look like potato chips? Really? That's cute. That's funny, Lori. And it looks like you guys are in agreement with the dimensionals, that you use every single bit that you can. And then this one will be set more on an angle and kind of be on the square and off the square. So if I take one of these dimensional halves and just give it a little bit of support in this area in between here, that'll be enough to keep it raised up. But I'm also going to give a little bit of liquid glue, just a little bit. Mini glue dots would work really well for that part as well. And I'm going to set this on a little bit of a different angle than the other flowers are, just to make it look a little different. And now is where I want to put that little bitty yellow stamp back in play. Of course, we could add the little pink one while we're at it, because I covered up the other pink one again. And let's give another pink flower here, just to pull that pink around. And then the yellow with this little tiny, looks like wheat. We've got some right here. And I think it would look good to have some in this area as well. So what I'll do is I'll ink it up. But I'm not sure that I can get all three of these pieces to appear on there. So I'm going to wipe off the ink from this tiny bottom one here. Just wiping it off on my hand. I'm going to stamp off really quickly so I get a lighter shade of ink. And I'm nervous about messing up my square, so I'm going to just cover this up here. And that gives just that little bitty look here of having a little more of that wheat. It's a really interesting little stamp. I'm calling it wheat for the lack of calling it something else. A hamburger. Oh my, you guys have got some interesting thoughts on this little flower. Isn't that funny? So something else that I thought looked really nice on this project was the look of some itty bitty small black dots. So the way that I do that is I use the bullet end of the Stampin' Right black marker. And I'm not going to push down like this. Whoops, that went right through my grid paper. Okay, that was too hard. So I'm not going to push down and get a firm black mark. Instead, I'll just barely touch the paper, and you see that, I don't know if you can see the difference between these two, but there is a big difference. So to give just a little bit of atmosphere, I'm mindful that I've got some yellow on my finger. Then I want to add just some accent marks in sets of 3. So I'll add that here. Itty bitty bitty itty. Just tiny little black spots. Just enough to complement the black bold lines of the sentiment. And then I'll put some right up here. barely touching the paper. As you can see, it's just barely enough to be there. And I always work them in threes because the odd numbers just appear a little bit more friendly to the brain. Just enough to see those little lines. You see how nicely this is coming together? It's not a complicated card at all. And now the last bit we'll do is to add some sparkly sequins, and these are the Gingham Gala. I've got them in an old bag here. And I like the ones that are this really pretty, I think they're supposed to be balmy blue, but they look very iridescent to me. So I'm just going to use them in a few places that are going to be complementary to the rest of the design. And I'll place one here. And I oftentimes will place them partially underneath one of the die cuts or one of the design elements because I don't want to take away from the beauty of the flowers. I just want to give an accent to the beauty of the flowers. And that will bring the front of the card to a finish. Very easy to duplicate. This would be a great swap card if you're going to on stage. This is something that I've thought that might be something that I'll make too, because once you get all your supplies out, it's just a matter of stamping them all down. Now for the inside of the card, I did something that I thought was a little bit of design that I might use on the front of the card. The inside of the card is a really great opportunity for me to audition a design that may not have been something that worked out on the front of the card, but I wanted to give it a nice compliment for the opposite side. So it's something that works, but it doesn't work all by itself, if that makes any sense. Laurie says that she has difficulty leaving white space. It's something you have to become accustomed to, Laurie, and see if it works in your design. So one of the ways that I kind of rectify the white space is that I want to, it makes me happy. The white space, seeing all the white space out, it just makes me calm. It's the best way I can describe it. But do it in your design, add it to your design, and see if you become more accustomed to it and become comfortable. And it might not be your style, so don't force yourself into doing something that you really might not be pleased with. If you are more comfortable with making a different style of card, then that's your style. There's nothing wrong with it. So this is the inside of the card that we're working on. We have a panel here, 4 inch by 5 1/4. And I'm going to ink up another image from the stamp set. This is the image of the lines. I'll stamp it off and then stamp it here on this panel. This stamp set is so great that there's so many opportunities to use the stamps together in so many different ways. And then the next thing I wanted to add was a little bit of greenery that would match the front of the card. So I have the opposite. No, this is the same one. This is the opposite over here. There were 2 images that were greenery. One is a lighter look and the other one is a more darker concentrated look. So this is a good chance to get this little guy inked up. So what I'm going to do is set this aside. And I'm going to use the soft seafoam and just kind of make a swag that kind of goes straight across and goes from one end of the card to the next. Now I've got 2 images here, and then I'm going to turn the stamp around so that I can have them kind of meet, but be giving me more of a variety. It's not going to just be a very uniform shape. This is going to give me something that's a little bit more organic looking. bring the yellow in too. So we're using all the same colors that we used before. Here's another one of the images, and this reminded me of fruit. So I am going to stamp it to where it kind of looks like fruit that is on this vine. Cool, huh? And I'm going to turn and rotate the stamp and use what's left on here to get a lighter shade. And I want them to appear as if they are not all the same direction and the same way. So as I stamp them, I'm going to make some things be a little bit more high and some things be a little bit more down to the bottom. And I'll use that second generation of ink also to give a little bit more of like a shadow of the fruit. Put it here. Our project is nearly finished. Thank you all for staying with me today and doing some live crafting. And then I think maybe one more little fruit. So I'm going to just get the one little fruit inked up there. There we go. So isn't that cool? I'm not sure that this would carry out on the front of a card. I might have much more expectation for something. But on the inside of the card is a great opportunity to try something different. And we've got so many wonderful sentiments that we're going to use a different one on the inside. This one says, hope your day is amazing. And the front of the card says, so glad we are friends. So this is kind of like a thinking of you card. So we're going to ink this up just like we did before. This ink pad is Tuxedo Black Memento. And because this is a very narrow sentiment, it'll fit just right up here at the top. There we have it. Straight enough. Straight enough for me, that is. And then we will adhere this to the inside of the card with some liquid glue. My liquid glue is almost out. So we have a really nice touch to the inside of the card as well as to the outside of the card. So this is a cool way to use a stamp set too. It looks a little bit different. And here again is the front of the card. So I can show you, because we have these two together, what it looks like on the front and on the inside of the card. I like the fact that this card is bright and cheerful and full of florals. And so that is something that makes me happy to create. And I think whenever someone receives this card, then it will make them happy as well, because they'll feel the love that I put into making this card. I'm going to turn the camera back around. This is what the two versions look like, and it looks like I got a little, I must have touched the stamp pad with this. So I'll have to do some kind of a surgery to get that off. But you can tell here, this is what the two cards look like. Very much the same. Very simple to create. Easy to follow directions. I'm going to turn the camera back around now, and we are going to almost be finished. There we go. So I hope you really like this card as much as I do. I'll have to turn it on its angle to avoid the lights, and I'll try to turn one of the lights off and see if that helps. Not so much, but it does make me look darker too. But this was a really nice, fun card. There we go. Now you can see it. A nice, fun card to put together. Thank you all so very much for spending the time with me crafting today. We do have some wonderful promotions with Stampin' Up! At the moment. If you join during the months of January, February, and March, there's a special craft tote bag, and it's hanging on my doorknob back behind me, right here, that you can get this. It's only available to demonstrators, and you can pack it up full of all your crafty goodies. Also, if you are a demonstrator, this is something that we received at Onstage if you attended Onstage. However, there was extra stock, and Stampin' Up! Is offering these tool cases for sale to demonstrators. So if you're a demonstrator and you did not get the opportunity to go to OnStage and you'd like to get this tool case, you can order it now. If you'd like the tool case and you're not a demonstrator, get the starter kit for $99. It'll give you $175 worth of product, and then your first order you place can be for this toolkit. Otherwise, you can't get it. It's a demonstrator only item. I like the fact that they had other items too that were from OnStage. There were lots of Stampin' Up! Logo wear, some really pretty grid paper that I ordered, and I'll feature it on some of my videos coming up. Really, really fun perks of being a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. But the best one is getting to meet the people that I have met in my several years of being a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. Again, if you're interested in the paper share, then the paper share information is in the video description. And if you have a question, you can always just leave me a comment and ask about it. I do have a few spaces that are still available for the watercolor class in Atlantic City. It's going to be in April, the day before OnStage. Whether you're a demonstrator or not, you can attend and be part of the class. If you would like the class, but you're not going to be able to go to Atlantic City, we have a to-go version. Isn't that cool? You can sign up. I'll put a link to where you can go and click the button and go to the sign up page. You just click that you want to have the to-go version only, and what you'll get in your to-go kit is the same things that everybody will receive whenever they're at the in-person class in April. The only difference is that it will not include any inks. You'll be using the ink on your own because we don't have a transfer system to be able to take care of the ink. But it will include some extra special goodies that Charlotte and I have prepared for the attendees of the class. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask away. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Please stay tuned to my blog at jennystampsup.com. I have several new projects there every week, and not everyone has a video. So if you don't go over to my blog, then you're missing out on a lot of really great projects. Just like this bird card. There's not going to be a video for the bird card, but it's a really pretty card too. And I had a lot of fun putting it together. Have a great week, everybody, and I will see you again really soon. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name is Trip. Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.